after giving a little bit of a tour de force through different kinds of applying mostly generative AI, but also other parts of artificial intelligence into production processes, into the way that you interact with these new tools in documentary filmmaking, marketing films, and now with what we saw with Theo and Jean-Baptiste, a little bit the arty side of music video production on the border to brand images. We wanted to jump into a part that I personally find super interesting, and that has been touched upon several times already. The way, how does the process of development and writing change under the influence of AI? What we heard a little bit, that there is this, that it's changing the strictly linear process that we are used to in traditional filmmaking, is a little bit shifting to something that's more iterative, agile, where some of the roles that before have been very strictly defined are a little bit fuzzy at the edges, so to say. And I'm super happy for this next part to have two experts there. Both of them I already had on the stage, I think at Seriencamp, and also at Seriencamp, and talking a lot in Munich at lunch about the current state of AI. To the right here, you have Tobias Huber. He's an award-winning film and series producer, recognized as a pioneer in the creative use of generative AI. Currently, his company, Storybook Studios, is, at least in my opinion, the one who's pushing the envelope the most in terms of trying out what the use of AI and generative AI actually means for filmmaking processes, what is possible, and what kind of impact does it have for the different approaches in that regard. Here in the middle, we have Dr. Jennifer Becker, long day, a lot of talking, literary scholar and author. Her book, Die Zeit der Langeweile, is available. So if you want to read what she's writing in terms of literary fiction, that's the way to go. What's super interesting is Dr. Becker, or Jennifer, hopefully it's okay on stage if we go first name basis, is researching at the Literary Institute in terms of how is the cutting edge in terms of using writing programs for literary texts. We thought that we take a little bit step to the side, not bringing someone who actually writes scripts and works in movies, but someone who's researching actually on the literary front. So we're super happy to have both of you here, and a big round of applause for the beginning, I would say. I think one of the points that came up when we talked last year, and I think it's interesting to pick up nearly a year later now, is that you said back then that it's super interesting what's happening in terms of their interaction of the author with the technology, of trying to find out how to use a tool and what certain kind of tools are producing or reproducing. Can you give us maybe a little bit of an idea of what you're researching and how the work at the Institute looks like in that regard?
Of course. Thank you, first of all, for this nice invite, nice introduction and this invite. So we started taking a look at story machines a couple of years ago, and it was kind of a very nerdy bubble. Nobody used any of these story generation machines back then. And back then means 2020, I think. It seems like ages ago, looking at the development of generative AI and text generation. And since the release of ChatGPT in 2022, there has been a lot of change, because now these systems are available for people that don't necessarily need to know code. And so the access is super easy. And so that means that we're looking at the field of literary, like the literary field, and also the field of literary writing, how especially the release of ChatGPT changed the way stories are being written. Like, I do it especially with regards on Germany, but we also take a look, of course, in the US. And especially in Germany, there is a lot of skepticism when it comes to these models. It doesn't mean that I'm not a skeptic at all. There are a lot of problems that go with these systems. You probably talked about it a lot already. But especially I think the notion of an author that works on their own, being not able, or like not being in a writer's room where you have people that help you developing stories, or where you do collaborative writing. It's kind of a notion that especially the literary field doesn't like that much, especially in Germany, looking at the Genius and Goethe. So I think there's a lot of discourse around that, and it's changing. And I feel like the field of movie making and films is already a little bit more open to the idea of working in a group, in a writer's room. And I mean, there's also a lot of skepticism, especially taking a look at the American Writers Guild, and they do have a point, I think. But we also take a look at how AI maybe can enhance the writing process. How does it help you finding ideas, or is it useful at all? And we are doing a lot of experiments with students, developing short stories, fiction. We try like very different forms of literature, also poetry, of course. And so there are different methods we use. First of all, we do use current writing models that everybody can approach. We are also particularly interested in older ones that are producing a lot of hallucinations, which is kind of interesting in an artistic process. And then we try some experimental methods via, for example, fine-tuning, which means that you have a pre-trained model that you further train with a specific data set to improve it for specific tasks. And when it comes to writing and generating language, that also means it tends to produce language that is actually less coherent and also a little bit spacey in a way. So this is what we are doing, and it's very a practical approach, with always in collaboration with students.
You mentioned some of the systems or programs that you're using to try this out. Could you give us a couple of examples? Because I think something like Sudowrite, who are also trying to get script writers to use it, is one example. What kind of models are you using? Are they open models or pre-trained models?
Mostly they're pre-trained models. I could also maybe show.
I'll give you a second. Hold on.
An example. It's probably easier if you I show you some programs. So while Gerhard is...
Here you go.
Yeah. Oh, perfect. Okay, so first of all, we do use a lot of pre-trained models that are accessible at the moment. I think now it's gone, I don't know why. Is it coming back? Do I need to do something?
Hold on.
No, now it's coming back. Okay, yeah, we already talked about Sudowrite, so don't... It doesn't matter because I think the screen that I recorded is a little bit cut at the left side. And the system looks a little bit different now because they improved it. So the story engine now is implicated in the writing interface. Here you can see, like, ignore this one, that it's kind of a template where you can structure a story. So, for example, you have brain dump where you can fill in everything that you know about your story. You can choose a genre, you can choose a style. Then the system writes a synopsis. Here I try to create a novel in 2 hours with the help of ChatGPT. So, of course, we also use ChatGPT. We do use Llama and the other programs. And you don't have to read that because nobody could do it. As you can see here, you have like a template for creating characters, and then you will basically get an outline, and then you have a beat sheet, which is also used in screenwriting. And then you can generate like a whole novel, I don't know, in a couple of hours. It's like very genre-based. I'm still not really, I think it's not. It could be better. I don't know if I would read what Pseudo-Writes is doing. This is also quite interesting, I think, also for screenwriting, because you have these functions where you can describe words. And as you can see here, I was trying to get a description for the protagonist, and then you get descriptions and suggestions how a person could look like, or how a room could look like, or whatever. And what is particularly interesting in these programs are functions like you can create dialogue or do brainstorming and stuff like that. Gerhard and me, we already talked before. I think it's kind of interesting, and there are more programs that are operating in that way, but it's still not at the point that we would use it for literary purposes. Then, of course, we use pre-trained models, just giving them simple prompts, taking a look at what the output is like. I always try, could you write the storyline for a chick lit novel that deals with a woman who's a writer and is supposed to write a story about Hugh Grant, and then she starts an affair with her yoga teacher. And I try that again and again, just to take a look at how the output is changing. And I think Claude is most interesting at the moment. I think if you're using it for literary and creative purposes. There's Raptor Write, which is also quite interesting. This is also free. It takes a little bit of time to understand the system. And I don't know how good it is for film writing, but it is interesting. AI Dungeon is a text-based adventure story game. You could also use it to create dialogue. You don't have to only do it in a fantasy genre. There are like also storylines that you can customize. Deep Story is a program for a screenwriter. And okay, now people are taking pictures. And I've heard a lot of good things about Drama Queen. I haven't tried it yet, so maybe you are interested and curious in trying it. This was actually a program that helps you organizing your script, but now it has an AI engine, so that's kind of interesting. And of course, you have these different agents that you can use if you would like to write nonfiction or whatever. So yeah, we try to use as many programs as possible to find out what is the state of the art. And I think Claude is most interesting at the moment.
What about DeepSeek?
I haven't tried DeepSeek for literary purposes. Would you recommend it?
Yes. No, it's sharp.
Okay. Yeah, we probably use it in summer term, so it starts next week.
Do you think that here, what you mentioned earlier, that this hallucinatory quality that's sometimes in there, that makes it more interesting? Or is it that, like the earlier models, ChatGPT 3.0 had this weird quality to the prompts? Or are the later models more interesting for the results you get out of it?
I think it always depends on what you would like to write. So if you're aiming on writing genre literature that is that could also easily be written without AI, I think then the newer models are better because you would like to create or like imitate these specific languages. But if you are more interested in maybe experimental stuff, poetry, or like creating dreamlike sceneries, I think the older ones are more interesting, especially, or if you do fine-tuning, I think this is also kind of nice and interesting because then you get a lot of hallucinations as well, because you have to do it at an API and then also with an older model, and because of overfitting, when the training is overfitted, then you get also some nice results that are like a little bit more surrealistic. So it depends on what you're doing. And the last time we talked, someone from movie making, I think, was also sitting on the panel and was telling us that there's like this connection between the rise of AI tools and this kind of surrealism that is coming back in art, but also in literature. So there are like a lot of interesting things if you push the systems into the direction that you are like aiming to. So I personally, I actually like the old ones better, but I think if you would like to structure a story, organize a story, then of course you are going to use the newer ones because they can help you by asking you questions or giving you suggestions on how to maybe structure the story that you are going to write. So.
I think it's interesting to see because some of the examples that we saw today, some of the videos that Max Penck showed had a very psychedelic nature to them. Also what Theo and JB were showing a little bit. I think for what you're doing and the way that you're working, the psychedelic quality is not something you're looking for. You're looking for something that's very close to the kind of images and image worlds that we're used to. What is your current view on the state of the technology in terms of getting it to adhere to the vision that you want to create on film?
So generally, I feel like when people send me videos and they think these videos are really cool and cutting edge, I kind of now feel like I already know what tool they were made of. And I feel like certain tools became dominant in a certain area. Let's say, for example, I know already if an image was generated with Midjourney, like usually if it's prompted like not very well, and that's why we are flooded with science fiction trailers and all that kind of stuff. Also, we see a lot of these weirdcore, we call it weirdcore trailers and weirdcore productions, because that's the easiest way to hide the downsides of AI, which, for example, means uncanny valley faces or the classic breaking up of characters in the background or the inconsistency of the images and all these kind of things that are just inherent in the current tools if you don't go one step further from what they offer you. And we always try and push the boundaries at Starbucks Studio. So it's very interesting what you said, like also with Claude, we experienced the same thing. Like Claude, it's a great tool to come up with stories, but pretty much everybody in our team is like multi-purpose talented in a way that we all are writers to a degree, we all are directors to a degree, we all define ourselves as filmmakers. But the common goal is to create content that is going in the direction of a cinematic approach. So the idea is that in the end we have like visually and from the audio imagery that is indistinguishable from an actual cinematic production. And it's not only that everything must be done with AI. We incorporating a lot of different tools. Like the guys beforehand also, they showed a lot of 3D images are created to create more control. And in the end, it is about like having control over the output. That's what we as creators want. And when you just let the AI decide, so the less input you give, the more convincing usually the result is. But as a creative, you want to approach with a vision and to use the AI as a tool to achieve that vision. And the boundaries are what's hurting at the moment. But we're always trying to push the boundaries in the direction of making realistic cinematic content.
What do you think, from your perspective, is the boundary right now in terms of filmmaking that is as close as possible to real film?
There's a lot of boundaries, unfortunately. Like the greatest boundary is consistency, like character consistency. As we heard today as well, like a lot of companies claim they've solved it. And with the latest runway, we also thought that maybe this is what is solving the problem. But even in the advertisement video that they released, it's not perfect. And the second thing is obviously lip sync. Lip sync is something that we need as storytellers. And that's why I mentioned also the videos that I get sent. Like some people are easily convinced by videos that look absolutely fantastic, but I can already see that, that's like easy. Obviously it's not easy, but that it's a supercut of 1 second clips. No one is talking. The same character is not being shown twice in a row. And that is something that is absolutely doable right now. But what's not doable is like literally having two characters sit in a scene that is predefined and have them talk to each other in a setting that is like not in the uncanny valley. And that's the difficult part.
So when you're developing your idea, so when you're developing stories, how is the process in reaching those boundaries? Is it like you try something out, you bounce back, and you go back to the drawing table? Or is it something where you for a long way try to find a way around it? So how does it influence the actual process of having your vision and trying to get a certain result out of it?
Basically, right now, we're always, like every single project that we do has a different workflow. So every time we're trying to try out new stuff, we're slowly reaching the point where we feel like the content that we create is comparable, or at least is entertaining enough to create that suspension of disbelief that we're craving. So people watch it and say, even if it's not perfect, I buy it because the story is convincing, and if the characters don't look exactly the same, that's fine. So we're trying to get to that point, and to do that, we're using every tool in the box, like everything that is being released. Sometimes we even have to switch scene by scene. So for the viewer, it might look like it's the same scene, but one direction shot was done by one AI, the other direction shot was done by a completely different set of tools, including like maybe 5 different workflows. So in the end, it's a combination. And obviously, we talked about that last week. A lot of these tools that we developed, like comfy workflows or like complicated stuff that we built ourselves, was made completely obsolete because ChatGPT 4.0 has a lot of the stuff directly built into the model that we were craving for literally for months. So that's kind of cool. Like, and stuff like that keeps happening.